só tempo para o Jerry. O Jerry vai precisar de mais 15 minutos para responder à sua entrevista.
Não, só uma pergunta, com uma resposta impossível. Jerry, pensa que é possível haver um cenário, o desenvolvimento de um cenário pacífico em Nhamanumbir, em que possa conviver a MRM e o garimpo, vamos dizer, o garimpo informal, ou é completamente impossível esse cenário vir a acontecer nos tempos mais próximos? Obrigado.
Alguém mais quer comentar ou fazer uma pergunta?
Boa tarde, José Maquenzi, da Universidade Eduardo Mondlane.
Boa tarde, Maquenzi.
Achei excelentes as 3 apresentações. Algumas questões que eu vou fazer são um pouco estúpidas, né? Mas só que estou curioso. Né? A Corinna, eu gostava de ouvir, sempre me fascinou essa coisa do místico em relação à guerra, né? E essa coisa das balas que cospem água, pessoas são antibala, etc. Da sua pesquisa, como é que conseguiu, ou seja, o que conseguiu apurar sobre essas representações e a fronteira do que é real, o que é místico, o que é uma narrativa em torno da guerra em relação a esse lado místico, né? Vamos dizer, dos supostos superpoderes humanos, né? Em relação da guerra e que são dados por esses agentes místicos, né? Como no caso os na Parama. Então eu gostava de ouvir um pouco o que é que conseguiu concluir em relação a este misticismo em torno da guerra. Ao Bill. Bill, as far as I understood from your excellent presentation, the insurgency has access to some sophisticated means, so which involves, I assume, technology. So, was it possible to track any kind of support to these technological means that have been probably used by the insurgency? If it's technically possible, what is your take on why it has not been possible to track all this use of this so sophisticated but to some extent traceable means? So I would like to hear your expert analysis on this, please. Ao Jerry, também com a sua excelente apresentação, eu gostava de ouvir por que é que tem sido complicado formalizar a mineração artesanal. Quais são exatamente os obstáculos relacionados a isso? É uma resistência por parte dos próprios mineiros? É o Estado? Quer dizer, qual é a economia política que está por detrás da persistente informalização da mineração artesanal? Obrigado.
Obrigada, Maquenzi. O Jerry tem muitas perguntas, mas eu não lhe vou dar tempo proporcional a todas as perguntas que ele tem. Vamos primeiro fazer uma primeira ronda e cada um dos nossos painelistas vai responder, tendo o mesmo tempo, e depois, o Bill poderá escolher quais das várias perguntas que lhe foram colocadas vai priorizar primeiro. Está bem? Is that okay, Bill?
Thank you. And thank you for all the insightful questions. It's good to know that someone finds it interesting. So the first one, my personal assessment, comparison of Palma versus Mocimboa de Praia. I think that when they attacked Mocimboa de Praia in August 2020, they intended to stay. There's been more than one report where they looked at Mocimboa de Praia as kind of a capital, and we know that with some of the leadership, Omar, he has a personal connection there. With Palma, I think it was more of a raid. It was probably one of the largest smash and grab thefts in Mozambican history. And what was telling to me was on 5 April, as the army started to regain control of the city, they found a cache of AGS-17 ammunition. That's a Russian-made cruiser weapon that fires 30 millimeter shells, and by putting that cache there, it means they intended to come back and hit it again. That was my interpretation. In terms of a new scenario, I kind of think it depends upon what al-Shabaab perceives their objectives would be. On one hand, if they attack the target like Palma again, it sends a message, you didn't secure it. On the other hand, as al-Shabaab now expands its area that it's operating in, it stretches security forces even more, and attacking somewhere on the periphery is a way to score a victory when there's a low density of forces to oppose them. You asked the question about DAG. Based upon what I saw, they really weren't effective in terms of stopping al-Shabaab at Palma. It's hard to do that with the type of rotary wing aircraft they had, but where they were really effective was in terms of evacuating civilians, and that was probably their biggest contribution that day, in my opinion. To your question about the refueling at a fungi, I was at another conference that Lionel Dick was at, and he stated openly they requested to refuel at a fungi. Because they didn't, it just increases the transit time, and their time on station is lower because of fuel. So yeah, that was an issue for them. Why the JTF and the fungi did not reinforce Palma, I don't have any evidence. I could speculate if you'd like. My speculation is their mission was to guard a fungi, not to leave a fungi. And when the attack on Palma was occurring, they don't know if that was a diversion. So I just think it was, our mission is not to help Palma, it's to stay here and guard a fungi. That's just my opinion. I don't have any direct information. The question about tracking technology, and I'm assuming that's with the cell phones. I think it might be two things. On one hand, the infrastructure and the phone coverage is a lot more sparse in Cabo Delgado. If you look at the 3 companies that carry here in Mozambique, they all show what their coverage is, and there's a lot of open space in Cabo Delgado. The second thing is, I think part of it's just discipline. It's kind of well known now that there's an ability to track cell phones, so I think they're very careful. We looked, I spoke about the repositioning to Palma. We looked pretty hard to find some kind of evidence that cell phones were used to coordinate that movement. We did not find any. And again, because there was single activations, in my opinion, that's just somebody who's disciplined. I do my one message and then shut it down, and it's over. So I think that's why. The question was about, does the FDS, did the security forces have the ability to retake Palma in the time they said? What I saw was there was a lot of press releases from the government. We have resecured Palma, it's safe. And then 3 days later, we have resecured Palma, it's safe. And so by those continuing messages, that tells me that it really wasn't. They may have been premature. In fact, there was a very insightful clip on TV here. Some security forces were being interviewed. They're saying the towns have been cleared, and as they're having that conversation, there's a gunshot. They turn and they all disperse because al-Shabaab is shooting at them. So that, to me, that answers the question. And then I don't have any direct evidence that foreign elements were at Palma. 2 data points I rely on is you see in some of the comments that locals make, to include some things I read from Omar, some very insightful sources. They talk about there's foreigners there. That depends upon what your definition of a local is. In northern Mozambique, a Tanzanian may not be a foreigner to you. I know that with some of the questions we were asking from some of these commercial entities, we were looking for white faces, right? People who are not local. We didn't find a lot of evidence of that. It doesn't mean it's there. My personal assessment is the relationship with the Islamic State at the time of the Palma attack was more of a money, resources, resupply kind of thing versus here's 200 guys, go kill somebody. There has been some reporting from the State Department that there were ISIL individuals with Al-Shabaab, but I think they're more of a, at this time, more of a leadership advisory kind of capacity. I haven't seen any direct evidence of foreign fighters fighting. And then I think that was it.
Bill, there's one question for you online. In your opinion, how likely is it that Al-Shabaab may start carrying out suicide attacks in Mozambique's major towns outside Cabo Delgado? This question is from Manuel Sambu. If I understood correctly, it's typing from Japan.
Thank you for that question. We saw that Al-Shabaab's tactics have changed. Once foreign forces were introduced, they went to a smaller, more cellular structure. We saw the first use of IEDs. I personally have not seen anything yet that indicates that there may be suicide attacks on the horizon. I think within Al-Shabaab, there's probably some couple different factions. There's a religious faction that sees this from a religious point of view. There's also a faction, or maybe individuals is a better word than faction, that see it as a local grievance and job issues. And the locals that see it as a jobs and fairness issue are probably not likely to do suicide attacks. If suicide attacks were introduced, I would hypothesize that would probably come of a funnel from the Islamic State. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Bill. Shall we go to Corinna now and then Jerry?
Yes, thank you so much. Just quickly, thank you so much for your question. So if I understood it correctly, you were asking where do these stories come from, right? What are the sources and how are they, how do people get to believe them? And I think, I don't know where they come from, right? You can't pinpoint a specific origin of these kind of mystical stories of vaccines or medications that protect you, but I think it's very common across any war that individual soldiers, combatants try to protect themselves. What I think happened here in the Civil War with the Naparama was something different, that it wasn't just individual protection, that people went to traditional healers and asked for individual protection, but it was, the medicine was used, the initiation ritual was used to kind of create a group, to create kind of a group that would protect other people. So it wasn't only about your individual protection, but it was about protection of the larger group, and I think that was innovative and new, and that's why it had attracted so many people. Thank you.
Obrigada, Corinna. Jerry, por favor.
Bom, obrigado pelas questões que aqui me foi colocadas. A primeira questão é se é possível ver um cenário pacífico na exploração de rubis na Manhumbiri. Bom, é possível. Vou começar dando um exemplo. A própria Muirite, quando obteve a licença de exploração, passou a comprar pedras preciosas a partir de jovens locais. E quem era responsável disso? É o próprio jovem que descobriu a mina de rubis lá em Namanhumbira, o jovem chamado Selemani. E ele que é responsável de comprar todas as pedras preciosas ao longo do perímetro ali do posto administrativo de Manhumbir. Então, este cenário é possível, mas também aconteceu na empresa onde anteriormente era da Mustang Resource, que agora vendeu a área para a Furas. Neste momento a Furas é que está a explorar. A Mustang fez a mesma coisa, sempre cooperou com os garimpeiros ilegais, sempre comprou pedras preciosas com os garimpeiros ilegais, explorando na sua própria área, atribuía equipamentos de proteção e isso acontecia. Agora, está a ser difícil na área agora que foi concessionada a Mirem. Este cenário está sendo difícil, mas a própria empresa parece estar interessada em implementar isso e será bom. Por quê? Porque vai reduzir esses conflitos. Eu acredito que é possível naquele contexto. Agora, outra questão que tem a ver se tem sido complicado formalizar a mineração. Esta questão é complicada não na sua resposta, mas o contexto em si torna muito difícil os garimpeiros ilegais, por exemplo, obterem uma licença. Normalmente os garimpeiros têm a possibilidade de obter uma senha mineira, e isso é da competência do administrador ou governador da província. No entanto, para ter uma área, ou para ter uma licença, ou aliás, uma senha mineira, o garimpeiro tem que demonstrar, ou seja, o garimpeiro tem que demonstrar que existe uma área com potencial recurso, e daí os técnicos dos recursos minerais é que vão averiguar e ver quais são os tipos de minérios que lá existem, a quantidade, e daí é que eles podem ter essa tal licença. Mas também há um problema. Muitas áreas são detidas por indivíduos mais abastadas, ou seja, pessoas que estão muito fortemente ligados ao poder central e que detêm muitas licenças. Então é difícil considerar uma senha mineira a um grupo de mineradores nessas condições, porque é impedimento, não tem como eu considerar essa licença enquanto que aquela área pertence a um indivíduo, e esse indivíduo tem o poder de influenciar as instituições do Estado, locais, até ao nível central. Outra questão tem a ver com os valores. Há pouco tempo, o Ministério dos Recursos Minerais agravou as taxas de licenciamento dessas atividades. Então, torna muito difícil para os jovens locais, por exemplo, formalizarem-se e terem que mobilizar recursos para obter essa senha mineira. E não só, há muita exigência na exploração dos recursos minerais. Não é só pegar nas suas picaretas e ir lá explorar, porque tem que se salvaguardar as questões ambientais, não só questões ambientais, mas também de segurança própria. Então, esses equipamentos todos envolvem muito dinheiro para adquirir. Então, o que faz com que seja difícil essas pessoas deterem essas senhas mineiras é por causa dessa estrutura já constituída localmente.
Obrigada. Muito obrigada, colegas de painel. Eu gostaria de saber se há alguma pergunta mais, um comentário, alguma pergunta de insistência. Fernando Lima. Pode repetir a questão, por favor?
Não sei se é possível fazer a questão do Hotel Amarula em Palma, o Bill. Now, Bill took some selective answers, so I'm saying if he can answer also on the issue of Amarula Hotel, which almost got into film and so.
Yes. So there was a lot of press coverage by the fact that there was foreign workers there. There was some accusations made at the Amarula Hotel about racism that kind of elevated the issue in the global press. I think what we know now was that the whole point to going to the Amarula Hotel, Bernard Omar himself was with the northern element that attacked the Palma airfield, which is just north. The reason they attacked the Palma airfield was to shut it down because they were aware that the the district governor was at Palma, and they were purposely trying to capture or kill him. So when they shut the airfield down, he fled to the Amarillo to get evac. They kind of followed him, and I think the tragedy after that was a result of that. So I don't think they specifically targeted those people. They were killing civilians all over the city. There were just more civilians to kill. Now, whether individuals had some desire to kill foreign workers, that's possible, I don't know. But I think from a bigger perspective, anything that happened there was incidental.
Eu vejo uma última mão e agora vamos desculpar. Por favor, tem uma questão para colocar?
Sim, very
Sim.
quickly.
Agora vou-lhe dar só 1 minuto mesmo.
My question is for Bill, and it's very quick. What intel do you have to share with us regarding what happened with Wagner when they were here, the Russians, apparently?
I don't mean to be flippant, but none.
Muito obrigada. Chegamos ao fim. Quaisquer perguntas de insistência, talvez consigam uma resposta com um café. Durante o café, talvez o Bill esteja mais à vontade para responder algumas perguntas. Eu agradeço-vos a todos e a todas por terem acompanhado este painel, pelas questões que colocaram aos nossos painelistas. Agradeço também à organização do evento, ao IES, está de parabéns, este é o primeiro dia da conferência, muitos parabéns e obrigada Corinna, Bill e Jerry pelas vossas excelentes apresentações. Obrigada. Obrigada também quem está online, o Manuel Sambo pela questão colocada. Dou por encerrado o painel. Obrigada.